It was only after abstaining for 5 days without any decrease in the pain in my liver that I finally decided to make an appointment with Don Chente Alvarado, a doctor Muñecón had recommended long before, but whom I hadn't yet called, still hoping that my favorite doctor would finally answer the many calls I made to him all week without anybody picking up, which made me assume that he and his secretary were both on vacation. It was only when a woman answered and told me that this was no longer Dr. Mullins' office, that in fact Dr. Mullins no longer had an office because he had returned to his native Catalonia 2 months before, which made the pain in my liver go from bad to worse at the mere thought of being hospitalized, that I immediately called Muñecón to get Don Chente Alvarado's phone number, then dial it to request an urgent appointment. That afternoon, I made my way to the building where Don Chente lived on San Lorenzo Street in Colonia del Valle, full of every possible prejudice, because I assumed that he was an allopath who would use any pretext to poison me with chemicals and then charge me an arm and a leg for the consultation. According to what Muñecón told me, Don Chente had been one of the doctors most coveted by wealthy Salvadorians before the Civil War, but had been forced into exile after recklessly treating a wounded man who turned out to be a guerrilla fighter. I lamented Pico Mullins' sudden departure, convinced that I will never find a doctor like him again, a homeopath who had opened my eyes to the scam of conventional medicine, and who always saw me as his last patient of the day, when nobody else was there, not even his secretary, so that he could take all the time in the world to listen to my complaints, and then change the subject to Mexican politics, about which he loved to speak with scathing disdain, taking advantage of the fact that I was a journalist to milk me for the latest newsroom gossip, all of which I enthusiastically shared with him, stoking his avid curiosity and satisfying his craving to analyze human stupidity. Pico Mullins was delightful, and he never charged me for any of my visits, not even the first one, when I came recommended by a colleague who informed him of the extent of my penury, the consequence of my forced residence in a foreign country in order to prevent my compatriots from carving me up into little pieces as they had so many others. The fact that Don Chente had money to spare was evident from the very first moment the elevator door opened onto foyer, which was in fact Don Chente's private apartment, and meant that the entire floor, the penthouse, I should say, was his. Quite impressive, given the size of the building, and the fact that he was the first Salvadorian refugee I had ever met in Mexico who could afford such a luxury. Nor was this just any old luxury. As I saw when a uniformed maid greeted me in said foyer and led me to a small sitting room, where, she said, I should wait for Don Chente. I must have spent about 3 minutes in that room, scrutinizing the decor and listening to the murmurs of a group of women who were probably drinking tea and playing canasta in a room surely less monastic than the one I found myself in, when a short, swarthy, gray-haired old man appeared, dressed in a guayabera and black pants and wearing tortoise-shell glasses that magnified his eyes. He greeted me with a certain formality, gently and very politely, telling me what a pleasure it was to meet me, and would I please follow him down the hallway, from which I could not catch even a glimpse of the prattling woman, where she sat, as I saw, with a certain formality, gently and very politely telling me what a pleasure it was to meet me, and would I please follow him down the hallway, from which I could not catch even a glimpse of the prattling woman, where she sat, as I saw, with a certain formality, gently and very politely telling me what a pleasure it was to meet me, and would I please follow him down the hallway, in spite of my curiosity-fueled efforts. That's how big this place was. A hallway similarly decorated in the style of the very wealthy, and at the end of which we came to Don Chente's office, or rather, a spacious library that looked nothing at all like any doctor's office I ever seen, except for the several framed degrees hanging on the wall behind the desk at which Don Chente sat after inviting me to take a seat. "How can I help you?" Don Chente asked, while I was still looking at the bookshelves and staring at the degrees that certify that the man in front of me, as a medical doctor, a psychologist, and an acupuncturist, a range of knowledge that made me a very positive impression on me, allowing me to cherish the hope that I was in the presence of somebody who would soon afford me relief from my pain. But before I set out to describe my ailments, and perhaps upon noticing my amazement at the number of books on the shelves, Don Chente told me that he no longer officially practiced his profession. He was retired, and that's why he didn't have a doctor's office per se. This was his library, where once in a while he saw one or another patient, a friend or a friend of friends. In my case, he was seeing me because of his friendship with Muñecón and his fond memories of my father's family.